What's going on, guys? I'm back with some more 2012 NFL offseason talk here today. I'm talking about the St. Louis Rams, who last year finished 2-14, had the number 2 overall selection, and decided that they would rather stick with Sam Bradford and traded that pick to the Washington Redskins so they could draft Robert Griffin III. And for that number 2 overall selection, they got a bunch of picks from Washington. They're going to really help build this team up. And then in the draft, they traded down from where they were at so they could stockpile 3 second-round picks. And so they had a lot of picks in this draft because there was a lot of holes on this team and they knew they couldn't just draft one impact player. They needed to draft a bunch of players that can hopefully become starters and make this team better than they were last year and help build them up, as the NFC West, in my opinion, is improving drastically, with the 49ers now being one of the top teams in the league. I think the Seattle Seahawks are on the rise with a very young secondary and some young players on offense. And the Cardinals, they got Larry Fitzgerald, they got Michael Floyd, and if they get that quarterback situation figured out, they could be a tough team again. But where do the Rams need to improve from last year? If you look at the numbers, it's clear they have to improve their offense. 30th in passing, 23rd in rushing. Kind of surprisingly, they were 7th against the pass, but 31st against the run. So what did they do to address these needs? In the draft, in the first round, they went and got Michael Brockers, defensive tackle out of LSU. I don't know a ton about this guy, but I've read a lot of things saying that he was a very raw prospect and probably shouldn't have gone this high, but he was one of the higher defensive tackle prospects, and it was a big need for the St. Louis Rams, so they have to get better at stopping the run. That's one way there. Fix the interior defensive line, and hopefully this guy can help clog up running lanes. And then in the second round, this was a surprise to a lot of people. Stephen Hill was still on the board, Ruben Randall was still on the board, who were some of the higher rated wide receiver prospects, and of course A.J. Jenkins had gone in the first round, surprised a lot of people. And then the Rams decided to go with Brian Quick out of Appalachian State. I don't know a lot about this guy, but in my opinion, this may be the most important pick of this entire draft class for the St. Louis Rams, because last year, Sam Bradford had a very tough season. He played in 10 games. He only threw 6 touchdowns. Statistically, his numbers were a little bit worse than Christian Ponder if you wanted to compare. But Bradford was sacked 36 times. That's 10th in the NFL last year, and he lacked weapons on offense at both tight end and at wide receiver. And so what they do in this draft, Brian Quick, boom, there's a guy who's going to start right away, I would assume. And they got Chris Givens, and here's the dark horse of this draft class. I watched this guy in the Senior Bowl. He was a Senior Bowl MVP. He looked like he had everything you need out of a spellback, a third down running back. Isaiah Pead. Look out for this guy this year. He's a very balanced running back who has some quickness and agility and should help out in the passing game as well. And so I do think the Rams did a good job of going out and trying to get talent that will help out this offense. I don't know a lot about Brian Quick. That to me is the key to this entire draft and how well this team is going to play this year on offense, because Quick, he's probably going to be one of the top receivers on the depth chart. He was the 33rd pick in the entire draft. And so that's pretty big for a guy from Appalachian State. It's a small school receiver. Guys like this can be risks, although some great receivers have gone to small schools. Terrell Owens went to Chattanooga, and Jerry Rice went to Mississippi Valley State. But still, it's a risk, I think, for the Rams, and hopefully it pays off, because if you're talking about Michael Brockers being a risk as a raw prospect, they took 4 risks in this draft that I can make note of right now. The third one they made was in the second round as well, and they took Janoris Jenkins, who I think should have still gone in the first round. He's a boomer bust type of product from a lot of people's perspectives, but I think he is going to be a great cornerback, and they'll be pairing him up with the aggressive Cortland Finnegan on the outside. I like that setup right there. But they took another risk in the third round in taking Tremaine Johnson, who he was picked in the third round, so it's actually pretty good value, but he also had off-the-field issues, a lot like Janoris Jenkins, and so I'm looking at 4 risks right there. But I think those guys are going to get a lot of playing time early. I'm looking forward to see how the St. Louis Rams play this year with a lot of young players. You got Givens and Quick on offense, along with Isaiah Pead, who will back up Steven Jackson, and then you got Janoris Jenkins and Tremaine Johnson, the defensive secondary. And when I look at the St. Louis Rams, I look at this year as hopefully being the year where Sam Bradford steps it up a bit. He's got some new receivers to play with on offense, a full offseason with head coach Jeff Fisher. I think this team will improve, although I don't expect them to be great or have really high expectations, and I would expect some growing pains, especially if a guy like Brian Quick is going to end up being like the #1 receiver and get a lot of targets thrown his way. But when you have a team like the Rams with a lot of young talent that hopefully molds into starters. They're still a lot of fun to watch. I'm kind of in the same situation right now with my Minnesota Vikings. And really, when you look at these rebuilding projects, you got to look at the starting quarterback and that dictating how long the project actually takes. They have Sam Bradford. Last year was rough, but he lacked talent on offense, and the Rams didn't do a very good job of protecting their starting quarterback. And here's a comparison for you Rams fans. If you look at Matt Stafford and what he's done to help the Lions become a formidable foe in the NFC North, his rookie season, he showed some promise. His second year was marred by injuries. His third year, he broke out through 41 touchdowns, 5,000 yards. Now, the Rams don't have a Calvin Johnson, but they have added weapons for their former #1 pick, and I look at this year being the year for Sam Bradford to separate himself from the middle of the pack and try to become one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. But anyways, guys, Rams fans, leave your feedback on the video. Please leave a comment on what you think about the St. Louis Rams in 2012. Leave a like on the video, please, if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment saying what team you want to see next. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.